Hey everybody, welcome back. So today I got a brand new MacBook M1 2021 and we're going to make it so that it can run Rails applications. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Terminal. So yeah, this is a totally learning process, so it's me kind of stumbling through it. I'm pressing Command plus to get my terminal letters larger. And so first off we could check the Ruby dash versions, and then we can do Rails dash V. Okay, so that's it. We've got 2.6.8, which is an old Ruby version, and so I think that might create a problem. But in order to do that, we need to run sudo gem install rails. Okay, so if I run that, what is this? Sudo is the permissions, meaning give like administrator positions. It makes it so that you can do kind of things that should be protected on the terminal. And then gem install rails, that's all Ruby stuff. So let's give that a try. And I'm just entering the system password for my computer. Okay, so this is quite what I was expecting. It's saying there's no version of active support compatible with your Ruby gems. Try installing an older version of the gem you're looking for. So it's saying do that. But what it's saying is that active support requires Ruby version greater than 2.7. And the current version is 2.6. So we are behind. So what I want to do is install a different version of Ruby onto my machine. I use Better Snap Tool as a way to quickly organize my windows. Cool. And so I want to open a browser. And then now for Ruby version managing, there's two options. There's RBENV. There might be more than two options, but these are the popular ones. Now this one, I am not as much, well actually I just haven't used that much, and I don't know why I like the Ruby version manager more, but this is the one that I like to use. And so we'll go through the installation process on this. So you need to install the GPG2 keys. Oops. Well, this new MacBook's kind of hard to do the highlighting. GPG2. Command not found, GPG2. Okay, well, this is exactly what I was going for with this video. GPG2. Command not found. How to resolve GPG command not found. It's a binary name, package manager. Okay, so now it's saying we need to get a package manager. Okay, so I do like using Homebrew. Now why because it just works. So we'll do that. GPG2. Now, brew not found. Okay, cool. So what we need to do is get Homebrew. The Homebrew. Okay, so what is Homebrew? Homebrew is basically like, it's a package managing tool. It's a package managing for other things. So, what does it do? Yeah, Homebrew installs the stuff you need that Apple or your Linux system didn't. Homebrew installs packages to their own directory and symlinks their files user/local. And this is on Mac OS Intel, so that might be different from this because they wouldn't say OS Intel. If it says Intel, it means that it's not the M1 chip. So Homebrew won't install files outside its prefix, and you can place a Homebrew installation wherever you like. We're not going to do that. We're going to just try to do it default. Okay. And so you could go through, simply Ruby. It's all Git and Ruby underneath. Brew Git. So it's just about it's basically a way to download software more efficiently. And so here they just say install Homebrew, it's this command. So we paste this into a terminal and the script explains what to do and then pauses before it does it. So let's run through that process. Okay, so it says Xcode command line tool will be installed. Okay, so this is something that's going to take a long time. Let's press enter. And so this is just going to run for a while. It's doing a bunch of magic stuff to make it so that we can get Homebrew. Once we get Homebrew, we can get GPG2, and once we get GPG2, we'll be able to get the Ruby version manager. And then once we get the Ruby version manager, we'll be able to upgrade our Ruby version to the one that was required for the most recent Ruby Rails version. And this is why I decided to make this video, because this process is quite difficult, even for experienced developers, because you only have to do it once every time you get a computer. And so that's the value of this. So I'm just going to let this run quickly. Okay, that took a while, but the next one was just another cue to enter my password for my system. So it looks like it had installed the command line tools for Xcode, and now it's installing Homebrew. All right, this might take a while. Okay, so that took about 13 minutes on the new MacBook. That's with a pretty fast internet speed here. So it looks like we're good. So now we can go, if we go back to the terminal, we can brew-v. Next steps. Run these two commands in your terminal to add Homebrew to your path. Run brew help to get started. Okay. Let's see if we can do that. Okay, can't be found. Okay, so what it's saying here is that it wants us to run, oh my gosh, that's annoying. It wants us to run this command here. Oh my god. Okay, so this is quite annoying. I don't know how, this is part of the thing about setting up a new computer, so I'm going to leave this in the video. So I found this dictionary app popping up issue, and it looks like it's related to the trackpad. And you look up and data detector. Okay, cool. So the fast way to do that, Command P, and then go trackpad. And then it looks like on this one he's at point and click, and it look up the data detectors. Okay, so if I turn that off, hopefully I will be able to highlight these. Awesome. Okay, I actually want to run this whole command, I think. Okay, so I'm going to copy that. It looks like it worked. And here we go. And so what are these doing? They're adding it so that when you do, because you can see Homebrew here, it didn't work. Homebrew help, it didn't get anything. So this is adding eval. So it's adding this path, and then it's evaluating that to your Z profile, which is what you get here. So now, if we go brew help, it should work. Okay, cool. So this tells us that we have Homebrew installed correctly. So thank you, Mr. Jerry Romero, for that one. Okay, so we've got Homebrew installed. And so why did we want to do Homebrew? Because we want to get Ruby Version Manager. So now we should be able to do the Ruby Version Manager. So we install the GPG keys. It says it's not found. Okay, cool. So GPG2. Now we want to know how to do GPG Homebrew. I think this is actually the command. Homebrew install GPG2. And okay, so here it's saying that we can just install GPG2. Okay, cool. And yeah, this is the version things that's quite difficult. So GNUPG, also known as GPG2. Okay. So what we should be able to do is just go brew install GNUPG. GNUPG. Okay, cool. So now that's installing. Looks like it's going kind of quickly. Might not have to fast forward this one. And now I'm going to come back over here and recopy this just so I'm ready to go when that's complete. You see it's installing all these dependencies. OpenSSL, so that's the secure way of sending traffic on the internet. I don't know what most of these are. Package config. What was it doing up here? Downloading Homebrew core. Downloading package containers. Homebrew core. It's just getting all these other libraries. Okay, cool. So that was complete. Disable this behavior by setting. Running brew cleanup GP. Okay, hide these hints and Homebrew. No. Okay, we don't need to worry about that. So now we should have that GPG 2 And so now we should be able to run our GPG. This is the install the GPG kit. GPG2 not found. Now I'm going to try to quit the terminal and open up another one. And we'll try it again. GPG not found. GPG2 not found. Okay, so I hope I didn't just do all that for no reason. How to report. Okay, GPG. Did you try GPG Google? Okay, so let's try to do brew install Gpg. We'll try running this command. So brew install. Now it's going to say that we should already have this GNUPG and then GNUPG2. Maybe that will help us out. We'll just go GNUPG2 because this is telling me that it's already installed this one. No, we need to be brew install. To reinstall. It's already installed and up to date. Okay, so Homebrew did not work with that. If you're on Mac, you can try and install it with Homebrew. Yeah. It says that we've already got that. Here, this is the exact same thing. Mac OS X 10. Let's see about this Mac. Okay, this is OS X 12.3, so this is very much newer. Instead, this worked for me. -- key server. What's our command? Rec keys. Rec keys. He said key server and then put the thing in there. That might work. Let's see if there's somebody who's got the most recent one. Let's try brew install Gpg. Okay, cool. So it says that it already has that. Let's try it with this install RVM. Okay, so maybe we should go Gpg -- key server. And then no, I don't want to do that. I'm just making things up now. I'm just going to make sure that this is still incorrect. Let's see here. GPG2 not found. What if we just did GPG? Okay, cool. So this is starting to work. All right. Now, I'm just going to assume that works. I'm not sure. So if you're following along, you might want to wait until we're sure that this works. So now what we're going to do is run the command to install RVM. Okay, guys, so here I actually made a mistake. I kind of say that you should run both of these commands, but that's not true. The first one says install RVM, and the second one says to install RVM with Ruby on Rails in default. So I do both commands, but you don't need to do that. It's better to just run the command that makes it so that you run the default Ruby on Rails, because our intention is to do Rails. So I should have paid more attention and read more closely, but just running the second command is fine. And so you'll see that that's actually what I do in the video. So even though I ran both, it still worked out fine. Okay, and while that's waiting, I am going to scroll back up to... Okay, yeah. Let's get back to that page that said latest Ruby version. So we want to use 3.1.0. So that's what this RVM is actually, what we're doing by installing RVM, the Ruby version manager, is we're setting up a system to which we can change our Ruby version, because our current Ruby version is 2.7, and because we have a lower Ruby version than is needed by one of the libraries in Rails, we know that we need to upgrade our Ruby version. Okay, so it looks like our RVM is here. We should be able to go RVM-V. Okay, so it didn't work. So I'm going to read back through here. I should have done this to start using RVM. You need to run source RVM. So I can copy that and paste it in. It says in all your open shells. We only have one shell window open. To start using Rails, you need to run Rails new. So let's check to see if we have RVM. Okay, great. We have RVM. So we have the Ruby version manager. And so right now what we can do is get RVM install 3.1.0. This, I'm going off of memory right now. RVM install 3.1.0. Okay, cool. And so now this is probably going to take a while because it's installing a new Ruby programming language onto this system. And so that could take a while. Okay, so that looks like that was successful. So now we want to say RVM use 3.1.0. Now before I run this command, that is what I want to run. I'm just going to say ruby-v, and you see, okay, wow, we've got 3.1.0. It must have automatically done the RVM install, extracting, configuring. Ruby was built without documentation to build it. RVM docs redo. We don't need that. Okay, so cool. The RVM install must have done it. And so now if we go, yeah, ruby-v gives us 3.1.0, which is good. Okay, so now we have the Ruby version that's updated. And so our previous error, the error that was when we said Rails new, whatever, made it so that that required an updated version of Ruby. And so now that we have that updated version of Ruby, we should be able to create a new Rails app. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to change directories into the desktop just so that if it works, right now you can see my desktop is empty. And when I create a new app here, this is where the application should appear. So Rails, new, first app, first Rails app on new, and I'm doing it in JavaScript. It should be first Rails app, first M1 Rails app. Okay, so that's what I'm calling it. Interesting. Is not installed on the system. Rails-v. Okay, see. So it's apparently Rails is still not installed on the system, so we need to install Rails. And because it has a sudo in there, I need to enter the system password in order to make it happen. Okay, cool. So now we're running Rails. This is where actually trying to install Rails onto this machine. So we're not actually creating a new Rails app. What we're doing is installing Rails onto the machine. Because the MacBook M1 doesn't have Rails built in naturally, which is not surprising. So yeah, just wait for this to go and then we'll get back at it. Okay, so now that the Rails has completed its build, root sudo gem install Rails, so we have installed the Ruby gem Rails, we should have it on our system. Rails is not currently installed on the system. To get the latest version, simply do sudo gem install Rails. Done installing that. You can then rerun Rails. Sudo gem install Rails. I think this is why there's not a lot of videos about how to successfully install Rails. Rails is not currently installed on your system. To get the latest version, simply type sudo install Rails. I wonder if it has to do with me being... Let's see. I'm going to quit this terminal and we're going to try again. So once again, we're just going to bump up the size. So Rails-v. Okay, cool. So that's an interesting thing, that once you install Rails, you need to quit your terminal and start a new one. Who would have thought? These kinds of things are why there's not a lot of videos in my experience about how to set up Rails, is because it's quite strange. Anyway, so now we know that we have Rails installed, so we can go Rails, new, and I want to do this on the desktop. So cd desktop. So right there, the only folder on my desktop is useful programmer. And so what am I going to do? All ls does is list the files that are on the folder that you're in. So now we're going to do Rails, new, first M1 Rails app. We should just say app. It's a Rails app, doesn't it? Oh, nice. So now it looks like it's working. And so we should see that pop up here once it's complete. Awesome. So now it's just doing some basic Rails installation stuff. This is music to my ears because this means it looks like this video is going to be successful, because once you get to this point, you've got your system is set up and you're basically running Rails. So we could, yeah, I don't even have a text editor running, but so yeah, we can say, we can change directories into the first M1 app. And now if we list it, now we should be able to go Rails server to start the Rails server. Cool. And now if we come over here, we go to localhost 3000. That. Now we can see we've got a Rails server running. Cool. Okay, so one thing, yeah. And so I guess that completes this video on how to set up a new computer, a new 2001 MacBook M1 computer with a Rails, so that you can begin developing with Ruby on Rails. A lot of that stuff was kind of tricky, and it was a little bit of magic, so that's why I hope that having this video out there helps you guys with your development.